Hello and welcome to the First Right Podcast, your weekly dose of conservative news brought to you by Restoration of America. I'm your host, Hayden Ludwig, Research Director for Restoration News. Be sure to find our work at restoration-news.com. Today we're speaking with Brandon Fellows, a Trump supporter targeted by the Biden Justice Department for his role in the January 6 U.S. Capitol riots, which the left would have you believe was an armed insurrection directed by the 45th President of the United States. Of course, it was no such thing. While we do not on this show condone breaking the law that day, it's important to spotlight how warped and partisan and downright unfair our justice system has become under global elites and radical Democrats. And Brandon's here to testify to that corruption firsthand. Brandon, thank you for joining the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So you were convicted in February and sentenced to 42 months in prison, 5 of those months for contempt of court. 3.5 years of your life for what really amounts to about less than an hour of your life, right? Is that fair? Is that a good legal verdict?
Not at all, especially when comparing what happened with a lot of the Brett Kavanaugh protesters, the BLM protesters, and considering the fact that police officers have historically in the Capitol had a duty to give dispersal warnings and let people know, hey, you're breaking the law, and then give you time to comply and leave. They didn't do that with me and many other people that were there that day. So we were falsely under the impression that either A, they were also joining the protest with us, because, I mean, a lot of these people were claiming, hey, these people need to be defunded, and Trump had the support of all the police unions, or B, that we were they were basically saying, all right, well, we're going to allow it temporarily, which is what I eventually came to the conclusion of when they shared, hey, you got to follow the 6 p.m. curfew. We're allowing these actions, but we're not, you got to still, if you don't obviously attack anybody or steal anything or break anything. If you do, we'll handle you. But yeah, no, I don't think it's fair.
So you brought up the Brett Kavanaugh protesters. Let's add to that list the Antifa rioters, the Black Lives Matter rioters, and the 2020 Summer of Love, as they call it. None of these people ultimately went to prison. Very few of them were actually arrested and charged with anything. And many of those who were arrested, of course, had their bail bond paid for by these far-left charities, as they're called. I mean, Brandon, is this evidence that we are living in a country with a two-tier system of justice?
Absolutely. And then also you look at the sentencing disparities between those people. I mean, even at the level of them prosecuting and maintaining those charges. I think with the Portland rioters, it was like something along the lines of like 1/3 or 2/3 of their charges were just dropped completely. And I think the longest sentence I saw for somebody was 2 years. And it was like a Molotov cocktail situation. But yeah, I went in, took some selfies. The worst thing I did was take 2 hits of weed that was being passed around the room. And they gave me 35 months of prison. And not just prison, they put me in a domestic terrorist wing. Didn't allow us to get, haircuts, shaves, see our family for 2 years. Yes, they're definitely treating us very differently out here. And we're getting to see it at the top of the pyramid with Trump. We saw Biden was hiding documents. Trump's hiding it a lot better, was holding them in a lot more professional manner inside a safe. And Biden's not being prosecuted. Trump is. Just an example.
So we've heard it described as the DC gulag. How accurate is that? Tell us about your experience inside.
Yeah, well, now if people say it's a gulag now, it's true in the sense that they're holding people for political purposes. But we have overall as a group, and also the people that have supported us, messed up that jail so much in the media, and also both through internal and external investigations through the Department of Corrections and the United States Marshals. They are now treating us a lot better inside there. Now, for the first 2 years, that wasn't the case. We had to get 2 wardens fired. We needed those investigations to happen. We needed contempt charges against the jail. And for them to start treating us like humans. So that was very accurate. I had to chemically burn my hair off while I was in there. There was no haircuts allowed for us, no religious services, even though the other inmates would go there. You were not allowed visitations for 2+ years. Congress members even had to fight to get in there, and they run D.C. You can't tell them no. It's in D.C., and they tried to tell them no. So, yeah, they would attack us. I mean, yeah, there's lots of stuff. Whole long list.
Well, I don't know anybody in these prisons here, but I've met many people at Trump rallies over the years, and everybody I've met, down to the last man and woman, is a fundamentally decent, patriotic American. These are not domestic terrorists or anything remotely close to that mark. Yet these people are being treated like Soviet or Chinese political prisoners, and I don't think it's far off the mark to say that they are political prisoners of the Biden regime. What is your message to them and their families?
Well, the good news is it seems like it's toning down. I think, especially with the Supreme Court ruling that gives us a lot of merit to show, hey, look, here's just an example, of how they've selectively persecuted us. They applied this charge that has never been applied before in this sort of situation, 20-year maximum charge. That was my only felony. But also, we have a lot more hope right now. A lot more people are aware of just how much of a setup January 6th seemed to be. A lot of the footage is coming out, but also it seems like we may be getting Trump back in. So it's just a lot better of a time to, there's a lot. It seems like there's a lot to look forward to if you're one of these family members that are suffering.
So
and we have a community built in.
Yes, that's right. Tell us about that Supreme Court decision back in June, and where does that leave your case right now?
Yeah, so that was my only felony I was charged with and convicted of by these biased juries out here. And so when they overturned that, that's for a man named Fisher. I believe his first name's Joseph Fisher. And so what happens is the Supreme Court said basically it does not apply to us. So what we have to do at an individual level, all 349, I think it's a total of 350 have been charged with that. Only about I think it was 24% of us had only that felony. Whatever the number is, don't quote me on that. But either way, everybody can individually apply to their judges and say, hey, I either should get bond, I either should get released early, I should have less time to serve, and or, hey, you wrongfully imprisoned me for this long because of that felony. You guys owe me money. I'm in the latter category of all my time's been served. They held me in there for 35 months over this charge that no longer applies. So now I've got to do that. But which is, we had to push we had to push our talk here today off because I had to meet with a probation officer. Once that's updated, my probation should end as well, because I should have been done a long time ago. So
wow.
It's just a matter of procedure now.
Unreal, the things you have to go through. Tell us about that day, January 6th. Obviously, the left has a narrative that suits their political purposes, that it was this armed insurrection with absolutely no unarmed individuals present, none of whom were involved in any kind of insurrection that any of us could tell. And that, of course, it was directed by President Trump when, of course, all the footage it completely exonerates him. Give us your story that day.
Yes. Well, I just want to say this. I know that the left always tries to say, oh, look, we found these few people that had guns. But the important thing is, right, the party that loves guns didn't use them. And in fact, we had them used against us in the case of Ashley Babbitt getting shot, one of the protesters. And so that's not an insurrection. The country that loves guns, the party that really loves guns, didn't show up and use the guns. My story, though, is I got there around 2:40. Not a lot of people realize the grounds had been the gates had been basically removed between the hours of 12:45 to 1:30 in a lot of the areas, and they were basically fully gone by 2:30. And so when a lot of the people that were listening to Trump all the way down at the White House, even the locals confused, they think the White House and the Capitol are the same. They're totally different buildings, about 16 to 19 blocks away. I get down there, don't see any police officers. I don't see any barriers. And I'm from Albany, New York, the capital of New York. I'm able to go up and touch the Capitol at any time of the day or night. And so when I get to the Capitol, I'm thinking, okay, this place is called the People's House. That nickname in and of itself tells me and others we have more rights to be there than, say, for instance, the random New York Capitol. And so I'm not thinking anything of it as I'm up next to this building. And eventually people are screaming, they're letting us in, they're letting us in, which I found a little odd because at an earlier time, it seemed as if in another section of the building, they were not doing that. It seemed like there were 2 or 3 troublemakers and they looked like they got taken care of. But then in this other section, they're saying they're letting us in. So I went to go observe the officers I went to go look at them before entering the building, and it did seem supportive, which is that's also, you can use that in a defense called entrapment by estoppel. If officers' inactions and actions are telling that, hey, this is welcomed, you can use that. And it was. And when I went inside, I got videos that I've posted up on my X of them giving me directions over to the statues, of them, wishing me a good day, me wishing them a good day. And I got tons of selfies with them that day. So because of all that, because I was not under the impression I was going to be arrested, that I didn't do anything wrong because my life was going great. I owned a tree company and a chimney company. The second I left the building, I happily shared my name and where I was from and what I saw inside to CNN, fake news CNN. So it was very easy for them to find me. And that's why my grand jury met January 7th, the next day, and they came to arrest me 9 days later on January 16th, 2021. And my life has never been the same.
Wow. I mean, it is stunning. Tell us, how has your life changed? I mean, imagine being arrested, humiliating, losing everything. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I obviously, they put me on house arrest for 5 months. They did not let me operate my businesses. So they basically just they were like, no, that's too much paperwork for us. We want you to, because I went to the different addresses every day. They said, no, we want you to go to just one address consistently. So you're going to have to basically ignore your businesses, go do something else. So I peacefully protested. I applied to places like the FBI, the Capitol Police, to be facetious. And, they didn't like that. Yeah. So things like that got me revoked. And I was like, well, you guys are wrong for doing this to me anyways. I'm going to stand my ground. So, 35 months of imprisonment, terrible nutrition and stuff that, as a lot of my family members died, my grandparents, who I was closest with, and you get out and they forced me to live in DC. I'm not from here. And it's just, they didn't give me the option. I tried to go back upstate New York. They said, nope. And so now I'm just like, all right, this is not my city.
Truly a fate worse than death. Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
I understand that.
I mean, my life is just not resembling what it was whatsoever. So, yeah.
Well, on this show, of course, we have said that America is descending into a police state. When you look at the way that our justice system is weaponized against patriots, even where there's legitimate crimes committed, those sentences are blown out of proportion depending on your political preferences and which party you belong to. And this is a huge problem. Brandon, I know we're short on time, so as we close out here, I understand you're involved in a ministry now. Do I have that correct? Can you tell us about that?
I don't know whether I'd call it a ministry. I know I've been talking about prison reforms and recidivism to lots, even leftist places and organizations, which I'm surprised they've had me on. I did and I'm not saying this group is leftist, but I'm just throwing out a random example, was the World Peace Federation. And I talk about what things need to be changed, but I'm also going around and showing people the jail videos that I snuck out. And Democrats even are like, oh my gosh, they had you in these terrible conditions. You just see me and I look like a monster, terrible nutrition, no haircut, no shaves, black mold coming out of the sink, and, a toilet that's not flushing and or clogged, not letting me out of the cell. That's been eye-opening for a lot of people. So, I mean, and I'm in the swamp. So I feel like this is an interesting place to be able to talk to people. Sometimes people's reactions aren't the greatest. I got attacked. It's been being investigated as a politically motivated hate crime on July 4th. Fortunately, my wrestling moves saved me, and I got to defend myself pretty decently and neutralize the threat. But yeah, it's been interesting. Been an interesting 49 days out here.
Unbelievable. Well, we certainly hope you get to go home soon. Brandon, fellows, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you, guys. And sorry about the connection issues. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Well, no problem. Let me thank you folks for tuning in and supporting conservative voices like Brandon's, working to expose the truth about the rot spreading through this once great country. Remember that it's only by working together and by praying together that we can restore the United States of America to greatness under Almighty and Sovereign God. I'm your host, Hayden Ludwig. Join us next time as the battle rages on.
First Right, a new kind of news summary without the liberal slant. Every morning, in your inbox, always free. Subscribe by texting First Right to 30161. That's First Right, all caps, one word, to 30161.